All right, let's talk about an industry that quite literally builds the world we live in: construction and infrastructure. But here's the thing, it's an industry at a major crossroads. It has to innovate and it has to do it now, or it seriously risks getting left behind. So let's dive into why that is. 1%. Just 1%. For the last 2 decades, this number has represented a massive, massive problem for one of the planet's biggest industries. But what on earth is it? Yep, that's it. That single number, just 1%, is the sum total of productivity growth in construction over the past 20 years. In an industry that makes up something like 13% of the entire global GDP, that's not just a number, it's a massive wake-up call. And that really brings us to our first big idea here. This isn't just about moving a little slowly. We're talking about an industry that's facing a crisis on multiple fronts, one that demands a complete rethink of how we build from the ground up. Now, to really understand how wild that 1% figure is, you have to see it next to everything else. While construction has been basically flatlining, the world economy as a whole has been growing at nearly 3 times that rate. And manufacturing, an industry often compared to construction, it's been growing at 3.6%. That's not a performance gap, that's a canyon. But look, this story isn't just about productivity. The industry is getting squeezed from every possible direction. You've got razor-thin profit margins, which makes nobody want to take risks. You've got an aging workforce. More than half of the people were born before 1979. So it's a real struggle to bring in new talent. And to top it all off, the industry is responsible for almost a third of global greenhouse gas emissions. So, how in the world does the industry break out of this cycle? Well, it doesn't start with a fancy new tool or a new piece of software. It starts with a whole new way of thinking. And that brings us to the innovation mindset. Before we get any deeper, let's just make sure we're on the same page about what innovation even means. It's not some magic buzzword. It's the real, disciplined work of implementing new ideas in a way that you can actually measure, in a way that boosts performance. It's a process, not a wish. And you know, innovation isn't just one thing. It can show up in all sorts of ways. You've got product innovation, which gives us amazing new materials like self-healing concrete. There's process innovation, which totally changes how we work, like with 3D printing. You've got service innovation, changing business models, and even project delivery innovation, which revamps the whole approach to how a project gets done. This quote from the source material just hits the nail on the head. If you want to break out of that 1% productivity rut, you simply cannot keep doing things the way they've always been done. The status quo is the enemy of progress here. It's as simple as that. But here's the catch. You can't just order people to be innovative. You have to create the right environment for it to grow. And an innovative culture is really built on these 5 pillars: giving teams the freedom to make decisions, being willing to take smart risks, having deep trust, bringing in diverse perspectives, and, maybe most importantly, having a relentless curiosity to always ask why and what if. Okay, so once you have that mindset starting to take hold, then you can start talking about the tools. This brings us to the new digital toolkit, the actual technologies that are making this huge transformation possible. The whole tech landscape can feel, well, pretty overwhelming, but we can simplify it by thinking about it in 3 basic layers. At the very bottom, you have the enablers. These are the things that collect and manage data. In the middle are the digital solutions that help us plan and analyze everything. And at the top, you have the on-site execution tools that bring all that digital smarts to the actual job site. And here's what that actually looks like. The enablers are things like the Internet of Things, or IoT, and digital twins, which are these amazing virtual models of a real-world asset. Think of them as the project's digital nervous system. Then you have digital solutions like BIM, or Building Information Modeling, and AI that process all that information to create smarter plans. And finally, on-site, you have tools like drones and robotics that bring all that intelligence into the physical world, making work safer and way more efficient. So we have the mindset, and we have the tools. Now let's talk about how this all actually comes together in the real world, from the very first plan to the last day on the project site. A massive part of this is shifting from that traditional waterfall approach, where everything is planned out in a super rigid step-by-step way at the beginning, to a much more agile mindset. Agile construction is all about being iterative and adaptive. It lets teams react to changes on the fly, and it drastically cuts down the time it takes to solve problems when they pop up. Adopting new tech is always risky, so how do you choose the right tools? The lever model gives you a really solid framework. It forces you to think through the economics, check if it's technically even possible, consider the real-world headaches of using it, and most importantly, predict what its actual impact will be. It's about making smart, data-driven choices, not just chasing the shiniest new toy. You know, this whole transformation isn't just about processes and tools. At its core, it's about people. So for our final section, let's look at the new kinds of roles and skills that are going to be essential for building the future of this industry. Building a team that's ready for the future isn't about guesswork. It requires a real strategy. Companies have to figure out the roles they'll need, take an honest look at the skills they already have, see where the gaps are, and then build and communicate a clear plan to close those gaps, whether it's through training or hiring. One of the key new roles is the digital officer. And listen, this is not just another name for the IT manager. This is a strategic leader who's responsible for weaving digital transformation into the very fabric of the business, making sure tech is serving the company's biggest goals. Next up, the data analyst. Construction sites are just generating unbelievable amounts of data from sensors, drones, all this software. The data analyst is the person who turns all that raw noise into real, actionable insights that make projects safer, more efficient, and more successful. And this one is really fascinating. The citizen developer. These are people on the front lines. They're not professional programmers who are using these new, easy-to-use platforms to build their own simple apps to solve their own specific problems. This is a total game changer because it empowers literally everyone to be an innovator. This quote just perfectly sums up the opportunity here. For decades, the industry has been sitting on this enormous untapped resource. The companies that figure out how to refine this data, well, they're the ones who are going to lead the next generation of construction. So, when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway? There's no single silver bullet here. Real, lasting transformation requires this powerful combination: an innovative mindset, the right digital toolkit, and a team of skilled people who are ready to lead the charge. In the end, this whole shift is changing the very definition of what it means to build something. It's not just about concrete and steel anymore. It's about data and code. So the question for everyone in this industry really is, are you ready to be a part of programming that future?